Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear viewers, this is the second episode of the 13th topic which we began in the previous session. If you recall, we were discussing a narrative on the schematic arrangement of the surahs of the Qur'an, and we had seen the questions which arise on the text of this narrative. I had put forth before you the criticisms which come to my mind when I read the narrative. Today in this session, I shall look at the chains of narration of this narrative and see how they have been reported in various books. I would like to point out first of all that there are primarily three chains of narration of this narrative and reported by three different companions. One of them is by Wasila ibn al-Asqa, the other person is Abu Umama, and the third person is Soban. So these are the three people, three Sahaba who narrate this from the Prophet. We also have, besides these three narratives which are muttasil, we have two morsel narratives as well, and which we shall also discuss later on. But let's start with these three muttasil narratives, and the first of them, as I said, is from Wasila ibn al-Asqa. So you can see a shortened illustration of this narrative being displayed before you, and I shall discuss the narrators in this particular chain, which I think have been impugned by our Rijal authorities. So first of all, you can see Qatada being displayed before you. His name is being displayed before you, and we know that Qatada is famous for his tadlis, and all the variants of this narrative have his anana present. So therefore, this is something which impugns this aspect of the chart. Now, the second person which is under consideration is Sayyid ibn Bashir al-Azdi. As you can see, he is also being indicated in the chart. Now, according to Nasai, he is Zarif. Ibn Habban records that he has a very bad memory and makes a lot of errors, and reports from Qatada narratives which do not have any corroboration. And you can see that in this particular in this particular narrative, all the variants, he is actually reporting from Qatada. Al-Ukali records that according to Yahya ibn Ma'in, he is Laysa bishay. This is as far as Sayyid ibn Bashir is concerned. Now we move on to the next narrative. As you can see, he is also being indicated in the chart before you, and his name is Imran ibn Dawar al-Qattan, and he is the person who also reports from Qatada ibn Di'ama. Uqayli records in his, that in the opinion of Yahya ibn Ma'in, Imran ibn Dawar al-Qattan is Zarif. And Ahmad ibn Hanbal says that he is hopeful that he may be Salih al-Hadith. According to An-Nasai, he is also Zarif. Ibn Hajar records that he is Saduq and is forgetful. So these are the opinions which these authorities have recorded variously. Al-Ukali in his Az-Zurafa al-Kabir, An-Nasai in his Az-Zurafa, and Ibn Hajar in his Taqrib al-Tahzib. Now, Al-Mizzi records that Abbas ad-Duri reports from Yahya ibn Ma'in that he is Laysa bil-Qawi, and at another place, Yahya says that he is Laysa huwa bi-shay, and that Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattan did not consider him worthy of being narrated from. Similarly, at one instance, Abu Dawud as-Sajistani has called him Zaif, and at another place he says that he has not heard anything bad about him. So this is as far as Imran ibn Dawar al-Qattan is concerned. Next, we move on to Lays ibn Abi Sulaim. As you can see that his name is also being indicated in the chart before you. So one group of scholars has regarded him to be suspect. According to Ibn Habban, in his last years, he had a bad memory and would not know what he is narrating, would mix up the chains of narration and make morsel narratives marfu, and wrongly attribute reports to sound narrators. Ibn Habban goes on to add that Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattan, Yahya ibn Ma'in, Abdul Rahman ibn Mahdi, and Ahmad ibn Hanbal have forsaken him. He also adds that in the opinion of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, he is Za'iful Hadith Jiddan and makes many mistakes. And this opinion has been recorded by Ibn Habban in his Al-Majruhin. Now, according to An-Nasai, he is Zarif. He has recorded this opinion as Az-Zurafa. And Ibn Hajar says that he is Saduq, mixes up a lot, is not able to distinguish between his narratives, and has been forsaken. And Ibn Hajar has recorded this opinion in his Taqrib al-Tahzib. Al-Mizzi records that Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Ibn Abi Hatim, and Abu Zur'a regard him to be Mustarib al-Hadith, and that Ibn Abi Hatim also regards him to be Zaif al-Hadith. This has been recorded by, this information has been recorded by Mizzi in his Tahzib al-Kamal. Ibn Hajar records in his Tehzeeb al-Tehzeeb that Yahya ibn Ma'in calls him to be Munkar al-Hadith, and Ibn Sa'd and Yaqub ibn Shayba regard him to be Za'if al-Hadith. So this is the opinion as far as Lays ibn Abi Sulaym is concerned. Next, viewers, we move on to the next narrator, and he is Sa'ad ibn Qais. And as you can see, that he is also someone who reports from Qatada. He is report from Qatada. And about him, the details are, he is majhul. No information is available on him. Next, viewers, we move on to Muhammad ibn Himyar. As you can see that he is being indicated in the chart before you. Now, according to Abu Hatim, he is yuktabu hadithuhu wala yuhtajju bihi, and this has been recorded in his Al-Jarh wa Ta'dil. Now, according to Ibn Hajar, Ibn al-Jawzi has recorded in his Al-Mawdu'at that Yaqub ibn Sufyan says that he is laysa biqawi, laysa bil-qawi. Az-Zahabi says about him in his Mizan al-I'tidal that the words are lahu gharaib wa afrad. Now, let's move on to the next person in this chart, and as you can see, he is Muhammad ibn Hafs al-Wassabi, and he's being indicated before you in the chart that is being displayed. Now, Az-Zahabi records that Ibn Abi Hatim abandoned him when he was told that al-Wassabi was not attested to, and that according to Ibn Manda, he is Zarif, and this has been recorded in Mizan al-I'tidal. So another thing that is worthy of note is that the chain of narration of At-Tabri is broken because in the opinion of Ibn Abi Hatim, Muhammad ibn Hafs never met Muhammad ibn Himyar. So you can see the two people being displayed before you, and this has been attested by Ibn Abi Hatim that the two of them never met. So we can clearly see that the chain of At-Tabri is broken as well. So viewers, this is as far as the first narrator is concerned, and he is Wasila ibn al-Asqa. You can clearly see that the various parts of this schematic illustration, all of them have the important narrators have been discussed before you, and all of them have some all of the people who lie at important points of this schematic illustration have some problem or the other. Qatada, as I said, is a person from who narrates from Abu Mali, and he himself is problematic. And from him, all the three narrators, Sa'd ibn Bashir, Imran ibn Dawr al-Qattan, and Sa'd ibn Qais, all three of them have problems with them. And in the other chain, in which Abu Burda reports from Abu Mali, we have also seen various narrators which are not attested to by our Rijal authority. So therefore, as a whole, the chain of Wasila ibn al-Asqa is extremely suspect. Now, let's move on to the second of these narrators who has reported this narrative, and he is Abu Umama. And you can see that this is a single chain of narration being displayed before you, and it is recorded in At-Tabrani. And as far as the narrators are concerned, let me look at them one by one. First is Lays ibn Sulaym, Lays ibn Abi Sulaym. And as I have already discussed Lays ibn Abi Sulaym in the previous case, in the case of Wasla ibn al-Asqa's narrative, and seen how various authorities have impugned him. So therefore, I will not repeat the jarh. You can just look it up again. But Lays ibn Abi Sulaym is a person who is present in this chain as well, and he is also impugned by our Rijal authorities. Now, the other person I'd like to point out here is Muhammad ibn Usman ibn Abi Shayba. Now, although some authorities have regarded him to be trustworthy, I would like to quote Ibn Hajar in his Lisan al-Mizan about him. So he says that Abdullah ibn Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Abdullah ibn Usama al-Kalbi, Ibrahim ibn Ishaq as-Sawaf, and Dawood ibn Yahya say that he is a great liar. And Ibn Kharash says that he fabricates narratives. Jafar ibn Muhammad at-Tayalsi says that not only is he a great liar, he attributes to people narrations which are never reported by those who have actually heard them. So you can clearly see the extent of jarh on Muhammad ibn Usman ibn Abi Shayba, which Ibn Hajar has recorded in his Lisan al-Mizan, is intense and is very severe. Now, let's move on to the third person in this chain of, to the third person who reports this narrative. And the third person, if you recall, as I said, was Soban. And this also consists of a single variant, and this has been recorded by Al-Baghawi in his tafsir, and you can see the variant being displayed before you. Now, it may be noted that in most extant copies of Al-Baghawi tafsir, Yahya ibn Abi Kasir is erroneously written as Yahya ibn Kasir. So you can see that Yahya ibn Kasir, his actual name is Yahya ibn Abi Kasir, and he reports from Shaddad ibn Abdullah, but in some of the extant copies, and most of the extant copies, his name has been erroneously written as Yahya ibn Kasir. And furthermore, Ayyub ibn Utbah is erroneously written as Ayyub ibn Ibah. Of course, this seems to be a tasheef, and here again we need to correct this. Now, since this tafsir is actually a summarized version of Salabi's tafsir, a recourse to the latter tafsir clarifies these names. If you would ask me that how I have reached my conclusion, I would say that since Baghawi's tafsir is actually a summary of Salabi's tafsir, and if you have recourse to Salabi's tafsir, we find that these names are present in this corrected form. And I would also like to point out here that this particular aspect was brought to my notice by my friend Iftikhar Tabassum when I was researching to this narrative. So I'm, in this regard, very indebted to him. Now, in the above chain of narration, Ayyub ibn Utbah is suspect. If you recall that Ayyub ibn Utbah is the person who was erroneously written as Ayyub ibn Ibah. So he is a suspect. And I would like to point out what Al-Uqayli has written about him in his Az-Zurafa al-Kabir. So in the opinion of Yahya ibn Ma'in, he is laysa bishay, and his narratives are nothing, not even worth a penny. And at another place, he has called him Zaif. Abdullah ibn Ahmad ibn Hanbal heard his father say that Ayyub ibn Utbah's narratives from Yahya ibn Abi Kasir have discrepancies, while from others he is okay. And you can see, viewers, as the chart being displayed before you, that here in this particular case, he narrates from Yahya ibn Abi Kasir. And we see that obviously the comment is very relevant here, because as has been said that by Al-Uqayli, that his narratives from this person it contains discrepancies. Now, Ibn Abi Hatim records that in the opinion of Abu Zura, he is Zarif. So Ibn Abi Hatim in his Al-Jarh wa Ta'dil says that according to Abu Zura, he is Zarif. Al-Bukhari in his Az-Zurafa says that he is Layyan. Al-Nasai says in his Zurafa that he is Muzdaribul Hadith. And Ibn Hajar in his Taqrib al-Tahzib says that he is Zaif. And Al-Mizzi records, and again Al-Mizzi's in this regard, his jar is in his Tahzib al-Kamal. So he says that Ali ibn al-Madini, Ibrahim ibn Yaqub al-Juzjani, Amr ibn Ali, Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Ammar al-Mawsili, and Muslim ibn al-Hajjaj record him to be Zarif. Al-Ijli remarks about him, Yuktabu hadithuhu wa laysa bil-qawi. Yaqub ibn Sufyan regards him to be Zarif. And Daraqutni says that he says Yutrak, that he has been forsaken. Now, as I said, this information has been recorded by Hafiz Mizzi in his Tahzib al-Kamal. So viewers, you can see that I have just analyzed before you the three narrators who report this from the Prophet, this narrative from the Prophet. And we have seen that in the case of Wasila ibn al-Asqa's narrative, it's more comprehensive. But people like Soban and just before him, the person who reported, whom I named before you, is Abu Umama actually. So Abu Umama and Soban, both of these two, they are just recorded by a single chain of narration, and we have seen that both these cases in which a single chain of narration has been recorded before you or presented before you, it has problems, and therefore both these chains of narration also stand suspect in my eyes. Now, if you recall, I had said earlier on that besides these three muttasil narratives, we also have two mursal narratives. And these two mursal narratives, although by their own nature that they are mursal, they cannot be entertained, but we can see that there's further jar on these mursal narratives as well. So the first of these mursal narratives, as you can see, is being displayed before you. It is by Abu Qilaba. Now, Abu Qilaba, Abdullah ibn Yazid, Abu Qilaba, Abdullah ibn Yazid died in 104, so there are various dates, 104, 106, or 107. So moreover, this clearly shows that the narrative is mursal. Moreover, Khalid ibn Mehran as you can see, he is being indicated before you. He is the person who reports this from Abu Qilaba. Khalid ibn Mihran is a mudallis, as pointed out by Ibn Hajar in his Tabaqat al-Mudallisin. And this narrative has an anana from him. So you can clearly see that since Khalid ibn Mihran is a mudallis and he has an anana, so therefore this stands to question as well. Though most authorities have regarded him to be a trustworthy narrator, in the opinion of Abu Hatim, he is yuktabu hadithuhu wala yuhtajju bihi. So this is as far as the first morsel narrative is concerned, that the person Khalid ibn Mihran, who reports this from Abu Qilaba, is a suspect person. Now, the second of these morsel narratives has been reported by Abu Ubaid. As you can see that this chart is being displayed before you. Now, besides this, the inqita, because Sayyid ibn Abi Hilal, who is the person who narrates this morsel narrative, or from whom this morsel narrative has been recorded by Abu Ubaid. Now, he died in 149 Hijrah, which obviously means that this narrative is a morsel narrative. But besides this inqita, another flaw in the chain of narration is the existence of Abdullah ibn Saleh. So Abdullah ibn Saleh is the person about whom we have discussed the jarh earlier on in some of my previous talks, and he can be looked up as well. But the fact of the matter is that he is also a person who is absolutely non-trustworthy. So you can see that these mursal narratives also are totally unreliable, not only because of the fact that they are mursal, but because they have other flaws as well. So viewers, this is a summary of the questions which arise on the chain of narration of this narrative. And as I have reiterated many a time, that when we raise questions on the text of the narrative and on the chain of narration, then primarily the questions on the chain of narration are raised so that it can be shown that primarily a narrative which is weakly reported as far as text is concerned, which has there are a lot of questions which arise on the text of the narrative. If the chain of narration is also weak, it only goes in showing that something which has questions on its text as well, and which is also have reiterated that this is the primary reason that we reject or accept a narrative, that is the questions which arise on the matan or the text. So if these questions are strong enough and convincing, then the questions which arise on the chain of narration primarily are cited in support of the fact that matans which are weak are also transmitted in such a weak manner. So as I've always pointed out, that the questions on the chain of narration of a narrative, they are generally cited not as a decisive judge to reject a narrative, but as a supportive criterion to reject a narrative. And in this particular case, in the previous talk, in the previous episode, I had shown that the schematic illustration or the schematic arrangement of the Qur'an, in which this narrative tells us that the Qur'an has been arranged by the Prophet Muhammad himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He had actually pointed out that the Qur'an has been arranged in a certain manner. We have seen in the previous talk the questions which had arisen, and to me these questions, unless they are answered, we cannot in any way accept this sequence or this manner of arrangement in which the Prophet is reported to have pointed out how the surahs have been arranged. They do not fall in a very convincing manner. And today we have seen that not only, as I said, the questions which had arisen on the text of the narrative were something which critically tell us that this narrative is suspect. The chain of narration, the way they have been reported, they are also suspect, which in other words means that this narrative as a whole is not worthy of being entertained at all. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات.